Morning people, welcome back to F Politics. I've often accused the Tories of being the CEOs of pissing on us and telling us it's rain. But the way they've been celebrating the fact that after 2 years, Northern Ireland finally has a government again, they're also the majority shareholders of stabbing us and then selling us stitches.
Well, I had very constructive meetings this morning with the executive, political leaders across Stormont, and it's a historic and important day for the country because Northern Ireland's politicians are back in charge, making decisions on behalf of their people, which is exactly how it should be.
There's many decisions that we've taken here that they have not been able to take in Northern Ireland because they haven't had, the government up and running. So it's fantastic.
Because remember, this was the manifesto that they got elected on. They promised to get Brexit done. And here's Boris Johnson himself explaining exactly what that meant and why it was so important.
Investing in the NHS, we're lifting up funding for education, putting 20,000 more police officers on the streets of this country. But you can only do all those things once you've got Brexit done and ended the uncertainty.
Our parliament had been jammed up for almost 4 years because 52% of voters had told parliament to leave the EU, but without giving any instruction as to what the new relationship with the EU should be. So our politicians spent years negotiating that new relationship with the EU while at the same time arguing with each other as to what that new relationship should actually be. And a huge part of that problem was about how you solve the incompatibility between peace in Northern Ireland and the kind of Brexit that most Brexit voters actually wanted. So the whole idea behind the Get Brexit Done manifesto promise was to allow our politics, our system of government, to function normally again. But because of Brexit, Northern Ireland hasn't had a government for almost 2 years. So what the Tories have actually done is take the parliamentary chaos that they inflicted on us in the first place via Brexit and simply chucked it at Northern Ireland, who by the way, voted against Brexit. And Northern Ireland, at least for now, is still part of the UK, so this has all really just been a shell game. You know, like if a business hides all of its debt in one particular part of the company that it knows its shareholders never look at to make it look like the business is doing well. Geez, I've used a lot of business analogies today, but you get the point. So when you see the Tories patting themselves on the back for restoring the government of Northern Ireland, they're congratulating themselves for fixing something that they broke. Like I said, stabbing us, then selling us stitches. And it's not like they didn't see this coming. The DUP is the main unionist party in Northern Ireland, i.e. they believe Northern Ireland should be part of the UK. Which is why despite supporting Brexit for years, they rejected Boris Johnson's Brexit deal the moment it was published, because it created a trade barrier between Britain and Northern Ireland, because Northern Ireland still had to follow the EU's rules when it came to goods. And I really wish that journalists would for once call them out for that stupidity. Because they're the Democratic Unionist Party, right? Keeping the union of Britain and Northern Ireland together is their entire reason for existing. But by supporting Brexit, they have split the union.
Congratulations, you played yourself.
Remember, the Good Friday Agreement that brought about relative peace in Northern Ireland after 3,600 people were killed, that was based on government power sharing between the parties that wanted Northern Ireland to be part of the UK and those who wanted it to be part of a united Ireland. So because the DUP wasn't happy with a Brexit deal that split the union, and they weren't happy with Sinn Féin, the party that believes in a united Ireland, winning the last election, they walked out of the power sharing arrangement in 2022, leaving Northern Ireland without a government for the last 2 years. Now we already know that Brexit has cost lives in the UK generally because it damaged the NHS by making drugs more expensive and harder to get, and by making our NHS staffing shortage even worse because it told every doctor and nurse in Europe that they'd have more rights if they lived in literally any other European country. But when it comes to how not having a government has affected Northern Ireland, listen to Matthew O'Toole, the leader of the opposition in the Northern Ireland Assembly, in a conversation that I had with him on Pod Save the UK when I was filling in for Nish Kumar.
Listeners who may not be familiar about what it looks like for civil servants to be running a nation, what can't be done?
Well, what can't be done is really anything significant. So that could be anything where there isn't a clear policy direction from a previous minister. There can't be any decision made on it. But even beyond that, there's obviously civil servants don't want to take any decision that's going to put them or their department at legal risk. So they have to be inherently cautious. They can't, for example, agree a more ambitious pay deal for healthcare workers in Northern Ireland who are paid not just worse than they're not keeping up with parity in terms of Britain, but they're also underpaid in relation to healthcare staff in the Republic of Ireland. And obviously, because of our proximity, we lose a huge amount of staff over the border because pay is better. And you can't, so civil servants can't, for example, strike a multi-year budget that would cover pay. They can't do workforce planning. They can't say, well, we're going to need this number of GPs, surgeons, midwives, physios, whatever, over the course of the next 3 years in different health trusts in Northern Ireland. That kind of thing it has to be ultimately signed off by a minister, because it'll require a budget to be assigned to it. And that's part of the reason why, as your caller accurately says, our health service is now not just on the brink of collapse, it is virtually collapsed already, because we haven't been able to make those decisions.
And the deal they've just done to fix all that says they'll make it a legal requirement that all new British laws have to be screened to make sure they don't create any new trade barriers between Northern Ireland and Great Britain. And because Northern Ireland effectively follows EU rules, that means that all UK laws have to be screened now to make sure they're compatible with the EU's laws. So a Brexit that was sold on the basis of taking back control of UK laws, saving the UK and leaving the EU behind, is now giving Parliament an ultimatum that if they go too far away from the EU, they'll break up the UK. And that's now more on the cards than ever, because the people of Northern Ireland have been consistently screwed by the politics of England since 2016. And so they've now got a pro-United Ireland First Minister who's saying,
decade of opportunity, so you anticipate a referendum on Irish unity within the next 10 years?
Yes, I believe we're in a decade of opportunity.
So the Tories got elected on a promise to move this country on from Brexit, and 5 years later, they're still fighting with the DUP, negotiating with the EU. They've only just started doing checks on imports at the border, with more to start in April. They disabled the government of Northern Ireland for 2 years. They cost lives during and after the pandemic. They fundamentally undermined the core principles of Brexit, and because of all of that, they might literally bring the United Kingdom to an end, and they're now patting themselves on the back for a job well done. When the Tories are gone and the Brexit dream is fully dead, we are all going to have to work hard to end this fucking madness. I'm Femi, make sure you follow F Politics so politics doesn't F you. Have a great week.